Hello together and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I just recorded a video with Christoffer, and in the conclusion we talked about how hedonism might be at the heart of many of our problems in our society. And also Christoffer mentioned marriage as one of the things that people could do to become more strong and independent and virtuous, instead of just following the path of most pleasure and least difficulties. And I think that marriage is a very important topic that gets a very bad press today. Basically, it's very common in our society to sneer about this idea of marriage and to say that it's stupid and it's old-fashioned, and why would I want to stay with one person for the rest of my life, and I don't know if I will still love this person in 10 years, or will I be still attracted to them, etc., etc. And I actually think that to marry someone and to commit yourself to be together with them for the rest of your life is a very, very important thing to do. And it is not an easy thing, but it is a thing that makes both of these individuals much stronger, because they have now this mutual promise that they will stick together no matter what comes. And I think as such, marriage is something which makes both individuals very, very much stronger. And I think that this tendency today that marriage is being discredited in society comes very much from this hedonistic life view, that the purpose of your life is to have a maximum amount of pleasure. And so if you are sexually attracted to more than one person, then why should you restrict yourself to only having sex with one person? That seems stupid from the hedonistic point of view. So I think that's maybe a good start, but I think really it's very bad that marriage is discredited so much in our society today.
Yes, very true. Very true. Thank you, Amos, for having me on here. Yes, marriage is a very important institution. And I could also mention, interestingly, in the book Brave New World, the novel which I mentioned in the last conversation, one of the things that is unique about that is that marriage is completely abolished. Not only that, but any kind of idea that you would have a commitment to a person for more than, say, a month would be considered very strange. It is expected that you will change the person with whom you're having a relationship after so and so many days. And there's a person violating that rule and wanting to stay more with that person than that expected framework, and people are sort of looking strange at that person. So that there you see a very anti-marriage dystopia. So that's an interesting note. Yes, marriage it's the basis for the family. It's the institution which unites a man and a woman for a very beautiful and sacred mission or goal, I would say, which is to bring new human beings into existence, to raise them, to guide them, and also to be united to each other for this purpose and helping each other out to be virtuous, good people. And also we would say as Catholics that marriage is a sacrament which binds together a man and a woman to help each other get to heaven, as well as the children they're bringing into this world. So it's a basis for the family, sacred institution, and it's very sad that it's being challenged and attacked today, as you pointed out, because it contradicts this hedonistic framework of society and social relations. Because in a marriage, you will get to know the whole person with whom you're marrying, not just the convenient good sides which you might be presented with when you go out and meet some very vague and loose friends on a Saturday night at a pub or party or restaurant. Or you're going to live with this person your whole life, and you will know that person's weaknesses. But it's a very beautiful thing that you will still stay with that person despite those flaws and help her or him become a better person. That's a very beautiful aspect of marriage, which I will also mention.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the point is also, you yourself have flaws too. And if you are married to someone, then you learn to trust that this person loves you, even though you have all of these flaws that you know about. And you will be able to confess to your wife or to your husband that you have these flaws, and they will not leave you, but they will still stay with you and still love you and care for you. And that, I think, is also a very beautiful aspect of marriage. And I think also that it is actually true, at least I experienced it so when I was contemplating to marry my wife, that you have to sacrifice a lot when you marry someone, because you say, from now on I will be with this person, and I will no longer seek to have romantic relations with any other woman or man. And that might be a sacrifice, because at some point in the future you might find some other person to whom you are attracted. But the point is that you also gain a lot from this sacrifice. And what you gain is a sense of stability and security, and it makes you much more stronger, and it also makes you immune, at least to some extent, from bad temptations. Because if you know that you are only going to have romantic or sexual relations with one person, then if another person tries to bribe you with some sexual or romantic offers, then you will resist this offer, because you have decided for yourself that you will stay, what is the word, true to your wife. And so in that sense, it will keep you perhaps out of a lot of trouble, and it will have you focused more on doing productive things instead of chasing many women or sleeping with many men and creating all kinds of problems and disturbances. And all of these things then have follow-up problems, and you can get into a lot of trouble if you follow this lifestyle. Whereas if you have a stable relationship where you can trust each other, it gives you a lot of strength and it avoids a lot of problems.
Yes, that's very true. And being married brings with itself order, and order in life. Instead of having this uncertain, chaotic, or potentially uncertain and chaotic life, you have this order and you have this principle, which is the good of the marriage, to live by, so that you will know that you act for the good of the marriage, even if you will sacrifice temporary pleasures and preferences. So it's in a sense liberating to live by a noble principle, and focus on that as the good to which you are pursuing. It's very noble and actually liberating. Many people think that marriage is constraining and enslaving, but it's actually the opposite. It is a way of mastering yourself and acting for a noble good that is beyond your ego, you could say. And it's very foundational, of course, to society, because the family is foundational to society, and the family is based on the institution of marriage. because to be together and to bring your children in the world, that is going to be a part of your life until you die. It's going to be a part of your identity, to be a husband or wife and to be a father or mother. And you thus are taking upon yourself certain duties which you are supposed to do, and you are called to become a virtuous husband or wife, and father or mother. And it's a way of securing that you're actually doing what you're supposed to do, and helping society itself thrive, because if the families thrive, the society thrives. And also making yourself and the one to whom you're married, as well as the children, thrive as well.
I think these are important points, actually 2 important points that you just brought up here. I think the first important point is this, as you said, finding a goal that is larger than yourself, which in the first instance would be the good of the marriage, which is not just the good of me, but the good of this unity of 2. And also the idea of mastering yourself, which means, and I think for me this has been a big difficulty, because of course the other good that you mentioned is that it's good for society if you form a stable family where you can raise children in a environment which is good and stable for them. But I think this point of mastering yourself is perhaps today, it's very unpopular, because today the trend is not towards mastering yourself, but towards just basically endorsing yourself or doing everything that you please. And I think perhaps one part why people have so a difficult time of seeing marriage as a good thing is that many young men, at least nowadays, watch a lot of pornography before they even start to really have a romantic relationship at all. And I think that's a very big problem, because pornography kind of teaches you this idea that it is good and right that all of your sexual desires should be satisfied all of the time. And I think this is a very unhealthy way to approach life or approach a relationship with an actual other human being. Because if you think that the woman in a relationship is only there to satisfy all of your desires, then this will not work very well. But I think that many young men today, they kind of have this idea in their head, and then they rightly perceive that, well, marriage is not this, and so it must be very bad. But I think that the good thing is actually that you should realize that it's not, the goal of life is not to always have all of your desires satisfied, but the goal of life is to do the good thing or the right thing. And in that sense, it is not such a big problem if you have to sacrifice a couple of your desires and come to terms with the fact that you will not have all of your desires fulfilled in your life. I think this is a very important lesson that people should learn. And then if you, once you have realized this and accepted it, then you are much more free to actually perceive all of the good things that a marriage gives to you. So I think that's one important point here.
I would say that the true desires that the person has is really reflecting a deep longing to do that which is good the good in itself. And unfortunately, with this hedonistic mentality or lifestyle, people are disordering their desires to pursue ends which are not really good and fulfilling at all, but to live a sustainable, healthy, virtuous life in accordance with natural law. That is healthy for the soul, and a really productive way when it comes to try to fulfill desires in a real and deep sense. And yes, as you point out, marriage will bring with it some inconveniences and difficulties. And as you say, there will be times when you will perhaps desire something that will not be fulfilled. But I would also say that the desire reflects a deeper longing that is actually about doing that which is good. So I will sort of see it in that way. And yes, I think this hedonistic mentality is behind a lot of the attacks, and this false notion of self-liberation, this liberal notion of self-liberation, that you should liberate yourself from the traditional institutions and sort of pursue your authentic self through you doing whatever you want and not caring about what people thought what was right according to your nature. This we see in feminism, for instance. And feminism is antagonistic toward marriage because they think, at least the more radical part of feminism seems to think that marriage is limiting the woman and keeping her under control of the man. But in fact, in reality, it's a way of elevating the dignity of the woman to becoming a faithful wife and a faithful mother. So it's a way of promoting the true dignity of the woman. But according to the feminists, it's good to just liberate yourself from that and be strong and independent. But to have two persons become one flesh, as Christ would say, that is what is truly beautiful and good for both the man and the woman. So we see also this completely false notion of liberation and true freedom as a very important difference between the truth and what those attackers of marriage would subscribe to.
Yes, and it's interesting that this idea of liberating yourself from all of these structures is formulated as making you more free and more independent and more like a strong individual. But in fact, I think it makes you weaker, because as we have said, marriage gives you stability and makes you therefore stronger. And you can truly trust there is one person in your life after you have married that you can truly trust and rely upon. And that gives you a lot of strength in other interactions with other people, so that you can be strong towards them, because you have always this small place or this small social circle where you can retreat, where you know that you will be welcome and you will be taken care of. And this goes for the man as well as for the woman. And you said marriage increases the dignity of the woman, and I would add it also increases the dignity of the man. It increases kind of the dignity of both of them, because of course there is also a negative aspect to male sexuality. It can be abusive and it can be controlling or just basically abusive, but it also has a positive aspect, and that can come out in a good and stable relationship. So yeah, I think that's very important. Also, you mentioned that the true desires would lead you towards a sustainable, healthy, and virtuous life. And I guess that is true. I mean, you have in past conversations brought up Thomas Aquinas that said that a good feeling is a symptom of doing a good thing. And so therefore you should try to do the good thing, and then the good feeling will establish itself. Whereas if you pursue the good feeling without doing the good thing, then it will feel worse and worse over time. And I think that is true. And in that sense, once you have kind of realized that and ordered your own thoughts accordingly, then it will be true that you will, your true desire will be towards a sustainable and healthy and virtuous life. But at least for me, it took quite a couple of years to realize that just pursuing my immediate pleasure gratification doesn't actually work. So I think this is, if you are young and you have just basically come into puberty, then you will just go the very straight path that you think, this is what I want, this will make me happy. And only perhaps after a couple of mistakes will you learn that it doesn't work, because I keep pursuing it, but I keep not being happy. And then you might come to the deeper truth, which is the one that you have said.
Yeah, you brought up good points there. And if you pursue certain inordinate desires, such as lust, then it's like a thirst which will never be fulfilled. You'll just continue to thirst and increasingly so. And if you really want to be fulfilled, you should not pursue that inordinate desire, but rather that which is good, which is really the source of satisfaction, the true source of satisfaction, and not try to pursue that which is a disorder. That's a very important principle. We have to look at how to be truly happy, and not to pursue pleasure in itself. That's a very, very important distinction, as we have talked about earlier. And also emphasizing virtue as the way to be happy, not just duties that you have to perform even though it's inconvenient, but actual means to which you can be fulfilled and healthy in a mental way. And that's so virtues are actually steps to become happy, in other words, and that's a very beautiful thing to think about. And a good marriage is sometimes exemplified by having a marriage couple who has been married for a long time, many years, and now they're very old, and they are and they're still happy in each other's company, and they have very much to do with each other, and they love each other very much, even though they're very old and they don't look as attractive as they might have done back in the past, but they still have this very deep love for each other. So we see that it's no longer about the romance, it's something much deeper. It's about a way of appreciating each other in a very intimate way, each other's person, and not mere romance or appearance, but something much more deeper and noble than that, which you can see in a very elderly couple who enjoys each other's company. That's a very beautiful thing to see. So that's a good example of a truly sustainable marriage where the members will be happy in a sense. So that's something people should think about. And also when it comes to trying to establish a marriage, trying to find out whom you want to marry, to look for persons who have good virtues. Find a person, I think, is this a person whom I want to spend the rest of my life with? Does she or he has the virtues like faithfulness, compassion and caring? Will this woman be a good virtuous mother? And for the woman marrying the man, we think, is this man going to take care of me and be a good father and faithful, etc. So virtues are very important. One has to look at find good virtues when one is considering whom to marry.
Yes, I think you brought up again a couple of good points here. I think today many people equate love with sexual attraction. And this is a very big mistake, because I think sexual attraction is a part of a relationship, but it's not the whole relationship. And I think this idea that you sorry, that you define love as wanting to be in the other person's presence, wanting to spend time with them, and wanting that they should have a good life, is a much more much deeper and more encompassing definition of love. And this kind of love can remain for the entire life that you spend with a person, whereas sexual attraction is sometimes it's there, and then at some point it might leave, and that's quite possible because we get more old and less attractive. So I think that's one important point. And the other important point is that you said that pursuing virtues is actually a path to being happy, that you shouldn't look at virtues as a uncomfortable duty that you have to perform, but actually as a good thing that is giving you something good. And I think that's very true, because if you just try to think back to the last time where you did something which you truly believe to be good, but perhaps it was uncomfortable, then after you did it, you will have felt, I guess, a kind of deep satisfaction. Whereas if you just pursue lust, as you said, it's like a thirst that never stops, no matter how much you drink. But if you can say of yourself, yes, I really did the right thing there, then you will feel a kind of satisfaction, which is like when you have quenched your thirst and then you are no longer thirsty, you are satisfied. So I think that was also a very good point that you mentioned there.
Yes, I think those are very good points that everyone can and should think about when it comes to marriage. And also, as I mentioned earlier in this conversation, in a marriage, you will of course know both the good sides and flaws or weaknesses of the person with whom you're marrying, and you will still be with this person even though she or he has these flaws. This is also a very important thing to consider. And if one tries to base to have a marriage based on pure romance, then it's basically doomed to fail, because romance and sexual attraction, as you point out, are like the wind. They flow from here to there. And I believe that in a marriage, one has to actively think about ways of sustaining that marriage, so that it doesn't become more and more and more weakened over time, which has happened in countless cases, unfortunately. So there is this active consideration that people need to take into account, that how can I help to avoid that this marriage becomes weakened, to keep it on a good level. And the answer to that cannot be found in sexual attraction and romance, but something deeper, a pursuit towards enjoying each other's company and caring about each other and willing the good of each other as a principle that you will commit yourself to, and have an active commitment to it, and be conscious that I'm going to stick to this even if the romance is gone. To have this active thought about pursuing that, I think that's a good and healthy principle. Yeah.
Yes, I would definitely agree that a marriage needs a strong commitment from both sides to say exactly that. I will stick to this union even if it becomes difficult, and even if the romance or the sexual attraction goes away at some point. And I think also one thing which goes together with this, which is also very much discredited today, is having children. And we once started a small discussion, not on a video, about whether the purpose of sexuality should always be to have children or not. And we were a little bit in disagreement there. But I think that it's actually very important for a man and a woman to not only to marry, but to have children. And I think that it's okay to enjoy your sexuality, but it shouldn't be only about enjoying. It should at least also be a goal to have children, because I think that it's actually a natural state of grown-up adults to have children that they care for. And if you don't have that in your life, then there is a crucial part that is missing. And this will lead to many kinds of problems, which I think many couples experience today and sometimes can't even identify where the problem is. And they try all kinds of things, from going to therapy to trying to become more attractive to trying to have a hobby that they do together. But actually the point is just that the children are missing, and in human nature, the point of a union is actually to then have children.
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely true. The primary purpose of marriage is to have children, and the sexual act has traditionally been called the marital act or conjugal act, the means by which you realize this primary purpose of marriage, procreation. And of course, it doesn't stop with merely giving birth to children, because the children needs those parents to be raised by them and be guided by them, be educated by them. And that's a lifelong commitment, that's a lifelong project. And that child will always be linked to your identity. If you're a man and you have a woman and you have children, then you will always be the father to that child, and the mother will always be the mother of that child. So they will both have that identity. And it's a lifelong commitment, and there are these virtues of marriage which are linked to the virtues of raising children in a healthy manner. And of course, the children are very much, it's very healthy and good for them to see that their parents both love them and love each other. So that's one reason why divorce is so bad, because it destroys this wonderful union that every child by nature should see in their parents. So marriage is the door to a new society, I would say, to generate a new society, because the family is its own society, and it is the means by which you generate new people, and you are called to do that in a good manner. And yes, that's very beautiful to think about. And it's very sad that the aspect of children it seems to be neglected today, and it needs to be emphasized strongly.
Yes, I would agree, because you can make, without children, you can make quite a strong question mark behind the should you get married. I mean, behind the whole institution, because if you are not going to have children, then yes, why shouldn't you have sex with more than one person? It seems not precisely obvious, but I think that having children is an essential part of life, and therefore of a marriage also. And I think, as you said, that a marriage is the best possible way how you can set up an environment into which a child can come and grow into this world. And again, the reason why children are also having children is discredited is behind some other pretexts, like the CO2 footprint or stuff like that, but it's also, again, this hedonistic pleasure seeking, because of course having a child is a lot of work, and it will be a lot of beautiful moments, but there will also be a lot of very uncomfortable moments. and you have to sacrifice even more of your own desires, because you can no longer go to the golf club, or you can no longer go to vacations here or there, or go skiing in the winter, but instead you will have to take care of your child. And so if you live according to the hedonistic principle of just maximizing your own pleasure, then having children is a cumbersome burden that you want to push out as far as you can. But again, I think it's very bad, because I think that it's also very good for a relation with your partner to have a child, because it puts many things just in the right perspective. So yeah.
And also, as you said, to raise a child involves a lot of work, and to be a mother for such a child, that's a full-time job. And it's very sad to see how many cases today you have of families where both the parents are working outside of the family and pursuing careers. And that doesn't really work, that both the parents should do that. When you have children, you need to take care of. And for instance, here in Norway, you have parents who might send their children into kindergarten at 8 and 1 years old, at one year after they were born. And that's not healthy at all. The child should be in his or her family, and not be sent into some external institutional agency when they're 1 year old. But that's a very tragic consequence of this tendency of people to pursue career over family. And I think that's, at least to a significant degree, caused by this feminist mentality that women should pursue careers and family is sort of secondary. But that's completely false. To be a mother, that is the primary job when you get children. That should be the focus. And to have both the parents work while you have children who need your care, it's a very destructive and immoral idea.
Yes, I would certainly agree that it's not good if both parents are away and kind of put the children in daycare all of the time. There might be some circumstance where this is the least bad thing, because you can't do it differently. But I think many cases where people do this today are actually not born out of necessity, but again, they are born out of some desires of the parents. So for example, the parents think, well, I want to have a career because that's very important to me. Or we want, of course, to live in a nice big house and have a big flat screen TV with a lot of channels, and to have a car or have 2 cars and go to vacation and all that stuff, which actually for a small child is completely irrelevant. A child would be happy to live just in one room with its parents being around. So it's much more important that you give attention to your child, and that you give it time and are there for it, and explain the world to him and show him how to do things, and just all of these things, then to provide a large material wealth and a big house and all that stuff. And so I think in many cases it is truly also an effect of this hedonistic lifestyle. And I would say that it can also work if perhaps the wife does most of the work and the husband stays at home. But it is important that children get enough attention from their parents. I think no psychologist would deny that. So yes.
Right, as you very good pointed out, very good point, that you could have children who are brought up in materially very wealthy environments with a very large house and cars and many luxuries. but they have very little attention from the parents because both the parents are working so much. And it doesn't really matter all that material wealth, because what the children need is the parents. The parents are what they truly need. So yes, as you said, you can have a child who's living in poor environments, but have a very loving and caring mother as well as father, and be very happy in a sense because of that, even though the person is living in poverty. And that really illustrates how important it is to value family over career, and that the lack of time to educate and raise children under the pretext of career, it's not justified at all. You have to take care of the children, and it's really a lifetime work, because it takes a lot of time, as you say, to raise children and take care of the home, etc. And that cannot work if you have both parents working, unless some special circumstances where if both are working from home and one of the parents is working very little, it's possible to combine that. But today we can certainly say that career, if both parents pursue career and they have children, that doesn't work. The children needs to come first, because that's the primary purpose of marriage and the family.
Yes, I think I think that's a good summary of this part of our conversation, that the children have to come first, because there are many also other organizations that can also work quite well. So for example, you can maybe have the grandparents take care of the children a couple of times per week, or you can have a nanny that is very kind and loving, that is always the same and comes for a certain time. So there are, I think, workable possibilities that you can have both parents staying in the work process and still having children. But the point is that the good of the child has to come first, and the good of the parents comes later. And so much of what we have discussed before comes from the desires of the parents. So the parents want to have a huge, big house, or the parents want to have a certain status in society where they can have expensive vacations or an expensive car, or all of these things. And as we have said, the child needs the parents. That's just a fact. And I think many psychologists have hinted at this, that if you get just enough attention as a child from your parents, then that will give you an inner sense of peace and security and stability for the rest of your life. And if you don't get this attention and the time when you need it, then you will have an inner sense of insecurity and instability, and that will also kind of remain for your life, or at least it's very, very difficult to change this later on. And so, yeah, that's, I think, what I would say to that.
Yeah, so we see a lot of fantastic qualities of the family in society, and how important it is, and the duties that the husband and the wife have toward each other, and the children, which are unfortunately ignored or attacked or neglected by many today. But we need to emphasize those, and to have the true family with husband and wife and children, many children, is a way of combating the current liberal order. If you want to have a traditionally conservative society, then you can generate that society by generating the basis of that society, which is the family, the nuclear family, and then also the extended family, which is also natural and good. So that's something to consider, that if you want to resist the current liberal order, to start a family and have lots of children and educate them all to become responsible, virtuous, traditionalist people. That's a very good thing that people should think about. to create such families. Of course, I would say that the family should be Catholic, because I consider that to be the most important. Catholic families to raise many children into the true faith and virtues and tradition and responsibility.
Yes, I mean, you brought up a couple of points that I think would maybe take this conversation too far now, because it's kind of time to get to a close. I would agree that that actually having a good family is a way of doing something to improve the world and also to resist current problematic developments in our society, because you create a small society which is actually working the way it should, which is working good. And that, I think, is a good point. Now, which is the right faith, and also if you should have many children or how many, I think these are big questions perhaps for another time. But I think what we did quite well in this conversation is point out that the institution of marriage is a very important social institution, and that it's really a shame and a bad thing that it's so much discredited in our society today. And also that having children inside a marriage is also a very important thing, and that it's even more a shame and a bad thing that this also is so much discredited in our society today.
Yes, so I think this is a nice way to sort of conclude this conversation, it seems. Also, one brief point I can mention is this, when you were considering what we've been talking about, we also see that monogamy is the true marriage, and polygamy, that's not good. That's out of the question. You need one mother and one father for the children, not multiple. So that's also something I can mention.
Yes, we should. I think I will also take this on my list of topics. We could have a conversation about monogamy and the value of monogamy and the problems of polygamy too, because that's another very important topic that is very much related to this idea of marriage. So I think that would be very worthwhile.
Yes, to have a discussion about monogamy and why that's the true marriage, obviously. Yes,
we should do that.
Great.
Okay, great. So in that case, thank you for having this very interesting and very important conversation here with me. And then I wish you and the audience a great evening.
Thank you very much. I wish you and the audience a great evening as well.
Great. So see you soon on another video. Goodbye.
Yes, goodbye.